They do tend to turn up with a sort of Netflix film crew or a photographer in tow. And you always get the feeling that whatever happens, whatever the discussions are, that it's going to sooner or later end up on a programme or in some sort of podcast or whatever. There must be some moments in the middle of the night where Harry's lying there thinking to himself, has this really been worth it?
Hello, I'm Matt Wilkinson and welcome to our show, Royal Exclusive. With me today is Phil Dampier, who used to do my job on The Sun during the 80s and early 90s. Welcome, Phil.
Yeah, thanks very much, Matt. Thanks for having me in your state-of-the-art studio. We've certainly never had anything like this in my day, but certain things have changed, a lot's changed, but still I think the basics are there. We're interested in the characters of the royal family, and to me the subject has actually never been bigger. I mean, worldwide the interest is just off the scale and much bigger than when I was doing it in the 80s and 90s, and it was pretty big then. Yeah. So it's quite extraordinary the way it's moved on.
Well, 100%. I mean, this week I think what most people have been talking about, again, is the Princess of Wales. So finally, they have said that she will not appear at the Colonel's Review Saturday week. Now, I wondered about your take on this, because we've known that she's been ill for a long time, and we knew that this was a date in a diary that people were speculating about, that she may well appear because she was to take the salute from the Irish Guards. Now they have recently just said that she will not be attending. What's your take on that? Are you surprised that they've announced it now and not, 3 or 4 months ago? Or what's your thoughts?
Well, you may remember a few weeks ago, I think it was a couple of months ago, the MOD or the Army made a bit of a blunder actually, because they started selling tickets for Trooping the Colour on the back of the fact that Kate would be there. I don't know why on earth they did that, and they very quickly, within 24 hours, had to withdraw that. Yeah. So that was a bit silly. I never expected her to be for either this dress rehearsal or the actual event. We all know she's got to concentrate on her health, getting better, and obviously the doctors have told her to take it easy. So I don't anticipate seeing her this summer, to be honest.
No, this is my thought on it. I mean, that they initially said obviously she'll be out till April, and then they said she'll be a little bit later, and now there is no date when we're actually going to see the princess.
No, we've also got the election, of course, which is taking a lot of attention away, and the royals aren't really out and about as much as they would be normally. So really we're just going to concentrate on sort of the core events coming up, the D-Day commemorations for the 80th anniversary, Trooping the Colour. We've got a state visit by the Emperor of Japan, and I think we're going to concentrate on that. But I don't anticipate seeing Kate probably until the autumn.
Do you think people are there was a lot of speculation a couple of months ago where people were asking where she was. Do you think people are now more patient and more understanding that the Princess of Wales is going through cancer, that she has done this video message, and that there isn't so much upset that she isn't going to appear at the Colonel's Review?
But I think most normal people are. Most people are happy to sort of let her recover. Obviously, you've still, unfortunately, got some very silly people on the internet, some trolls on Twitter and various other things, or X or whatever it now is. And I'm afraid there's nothing much you can do about those people. You know, there are some nutters out there who spread all sorts of ridiculous rumours about her. But most people will be happy for her to recover in the background, and really so that when she comes back, she'll probably be bigger than ever, but make sure that she's fully fit.
I was thinking this the other day, that she's going to be Queen one day, and she's going to be Princess of Wales for, Princess of Wales and Queen for another 40 or 50 years.
Well, we hope so.
We hope so. But just having her away for 4 or 5 months, I mean, we should understand that, really, shouldn't we? We should, because we're going to see a lot of her. She's given a lot of her time over the last 15 to 20 years as well.
Yeah, she was already the biggest star in the royal family, and obviously when she comes back, I think she's going to be bigger than ever. And the fact that she'll come back hopefully fully refreshed, fully fit, fully recovered, means that people will just love her even more, and the interest in her will just be absolutely astronomical. But let's not put her under too much pressure. Let's make sure that she recovers first, and she's a mum most importantly, and make sure that she's well enough to look after her kids. You're
totally right about discussions in the last couple of weeks about this, and it's her medical team that we're told, because when you have cancer, you might be fantastic one day. So she might wake up on the morning of the Colonel's Review and say, well, I feel 100% I can do this. But you don't know, you can't be sure. So she needs to go through a longer period of time where she is feeling okay, where she, so she doesn't have to, be forced into doing something that she doesn't want. No. And interesting you say, like, autumn maybe, and there's been a lot of rumours about later in the year. That would be a sensible time, because we get rid of the summer holidays, we get rid of the general election. It would be a sensible kind of benchmark for them to actually put in a diary and say, tentatively, maybe we could see her before the end of the year.
Well, we've got some very important things coming up in the autumn. We've got the Heads of Government Conference in Samoa, which obviously the King will want to go to if he can. If he can't go, then obviously William and Kate would be required to go to that. So if she's well enough to do that, that would be great. Again, the King and Camilla might well go to Australia and New Zealand after that or before that. So, these are very important events. So let's get her fit and well, and then she can fit into these things if needed. But it's dependent on both of them getting better.
Yeah, 100%. I'm expecting King and Queen to go to Australia. I mean, we put it on the front page. The King wants to go to Australia, so I'm expecting him to be there, and also for the Samoa. It's going to be a huge autumn, isn't it? Once we get past the election and the summer break.
He's not been to any of the countries that he's head of state in yet, has he? He's been to Germany, he's been to France, he's been to Kenya, but he's not been to New Zealand, he's not been to Canada, he's not been to Jamaica, he's not been to Australia. So all of these countries would really like to see their head of state. So, he's got to start soon. And obviously it's been derailed by the illness, but I'm sure that's what he's aiming for, to do that in the autumn. And obviously if William and Kate are fit as well, they might be able to play a role in that.
Be interested in your thoughts about the Princess of Wales. Obviously, you've seen her, and we mentioned at the beginning. You've been reporting on the royals for. You don't want me to give the exact because it feels a long time, but it's 38.
Say whatever you like. Yeah,
it's 38 years. So you've seen a lot of personalities from Diana.
I have.
All the way through Prince Andrew from his marriage all the way upwards. We'll get on to a little bit about what you remember and what you experienced later in the show. But where does the Princess of Wales? Where does she fit for you in the kind of pantheon of royal stars, of royal characters?
Well, I think she's right up there. I mean, I think it's unfair to compare her to Diana because they're both different characters and they're playing different roles. But Diana was an amazing person, but she had certain flaws. But I don't think Kate has really put a foot wrong, and she's been incredibly supportive. And I think she's done it in her own way, in a different way. But she's just as big as her, and she really is the sort of superstar of the royal family now and coming in the future. That's why it's so important that we look after her.
Yeah, looking after her, you're right. I mean, the Sun has supported her as much as we possibly can, and we will do in the future. We will continue to do that, and our readers, want to give her space and time. But talking of space and time and talking about Diana, one thing that comes in my mind is that the Princess of Wales' job is not strictly to go out and appear at a lot of engagements. She has a really important role to be a mother. It's 2024 and it sounds archaic, but she has to support the future king. She has to bring up a future king or a future queen. Let's say it's 2024, it sounds archaic, but these are incredibly important jobs, right?
Yeah, well, I think the fact that the King and Kate have both been battling cancer has really sort of focused us on this and made us realise, for many years we had these three generations. We had the Queen and Prince Philip, then we had Prince Charles, and then we had, of course, William and Harry. But now with this slimmed down monarchy by default, it's suddenly made people realise, well, hang on a minute, it's a bit too slimmed down. We're in a sort of period where obviously we all want the King and Kate to recover and press on. But we're going to have to wait 10 years before George and Charlotte and Louis come through. And they're obviously going to play their role. So it's going to be a very sort of important decade coming up. And as long as they're all fit, I think they're going to be able to get through it. And the King will, obviously hopefully have a good long reign. But it's obviously never going to be anything like his mother. Yeah.
Now, talking of members of the royal family that we haven't seen for a while, there's a date in my diary. I think it's after a check. I think it's June the 4th. Princess Lilibet will be celebrating her 3rd birthday. She is young. We don't see Lilibet very much. She was born in the US. Are you excited about her birthday? Were you expecting to see a new photograph like we would see Louis, we would see Charlotte, we see George? What's your take on Lilibet's
It wouldn't surprise me if Harry and Meghan put out a photo. I mean, they're quite good at putting out photos of their family when they want to make a point or they want to show us, that they're just as important as the rest of the royals. I can't get terribly excited. I just find it extraordinary that she's already 3. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But I had to check.
It is amazing that she's already 3, but there is this underlying sadness, of course, because of the rift that the King is not seeing his grandchildren. I think he's only met Lilibet possibly once, and Archie only a couple of times. And there they are, 7th and 8th, I think they are in line to the throne, growing up on the on the west coast of America, and with American accents, they're probably they just don't see them, and it's very sad also for Thomas Markle, Meghan's father, that they don't see them. So that is the underlying sadness, and whether they're going to one day heal this rift, we don't know. But at the moment, I don't think there's much prospect of it.
Stay tuned. There's loads more to come in the rest of the show.
I don't think the King wants to make the situation worse. He doesn't want to provoke them, and he is still hoping at some point for a reconciliation. I'm sure they're telling him that, yeah, right, you've made your point, you had Spare, you had Netflix, you had the Oprah Winfrey interview, you've got it all off your chest. It's now time for them really to focus on positive things and not just keep slagging off the royal family.
I remember during the Platinum Jubilee, when the late Queen was still alive, Harry and Meghan were over, obviously, and they took Lilibet to see the late Queen at Windsor Castle, and they turned up with a photographer. And the photographer was prevented from coming into Windsor Castle for many reasons. Firstly, the Queen wasn't very well. There was still kind of COVID issues, I think, around that time, and you have to, plan guests to come into Windsor Castle. Do you think Harry and Meghan are going about this the right way with Lilibet and Archie? Obviously, they've taken them over to the US, but they're not able to see the members of the family. How do you think about that?
Well, the big fear that I think the late Queen had, and also the King now has, is that when they turn up, they do tend to turn up with a sort of Netflix film crew or a photographer in tow. And you always get the feeling that whatever happens, whatever the discussions are, that it's going to sooner or later end up on a programme or in some sort of podcast or whatever. And that's unfortunately where the trust has gone, and they just don't trust him. And even if the Queen might have been, struggling with her health, I think she was still sharp as a tack, and she realised that any photograph that was taken of her with Lilibet could have been exploited. I don't think she was very pleased that it was presented to her as a fait accompli that the name Lilibet was chosen in the first place. I think she was a little bit upset by that. And so, yes, she put her foot down and said no photographs. And I must admit, I don't blame her. But it's sad that we've never seen one.
No, I think I can think of one. I think of one. I mean, she's Lilibet Diana. I mean, these are two of the most photographed, two of the most famous people in the world that she's named after. Yeah. But she is still young, and in the same way, we're respecting the Kate's privacy.
It's going to be fascinating to see those kids grow up. I mean, I always wonder to myself, when they get a bit older, they're going to start asking questions. How have we got to this situation? How is it that I don't see my grandparents? How is it I don't have anything to do with the royal family? It's going to be, when they get older, that's probably when the problem's going to start. It's going to be difficult for them.
So when Harry took his family across to the USA, he said he wanted to break the kind of cycle of pain, talking about his troubled upbringing. It's going to cause all sorts of problems bringing up these children in the US.
I think it's going to cause problems. I mean, it might be that they land on their feet and they go to good schools and they get great education and they suddenly go off into industry or sport or anything and have a great life. But the fact that they are still 7 and 8th in line to the throne is quite extraordinary, really. And you never know, one day they might actually be called into action of some degree. They might move up the scale. So it's all hanging a bit by a thread. And I think when they get older, they're going to start asking questions and say, how did it come to this? That that we haven't got a relationship with our grandparents and with the royal family. So and with our in particular with our uncle and with our cousins.
Well, do you think Harry's doing enough? I mean, he doesn't have a home in the UK. I mean, surely he could bring the children over to.
Well, he had opportunities recently, didn't he, on his way to the Invictus Games event, but. And Nigeria, Meghan didn't want to know. That's twice now that she's just stopped off at the airport at Heathrow, I think, in the lounge there. She clearly thinks that she's unpopular in this country. I don't think she wants to come back to this country. It wouldn't surprise me if she never came back to this country, to be honest. And I think that's where we are. It's very, very sad. But there must be some moments in the middle of the night where Harry's lying there thinking to himself, has this really been worth it? And is there something I could have done differently?
Yeah. Talking of birthdays, so the Conservative Party, obviously there's a general election being called in the UK, which means there are very few royal events at the moment. Yeah. But one of the flagship policies, Rishi Sunak, Conservative leader, suggested that all 18-year-olds could do or should do national service. So there will be a few members of the younger royals a little bit nervous about turning 18. Now, we have done a poll, Royal Exclusive on The Sun have done our first ever poll where we have asked viewers and readers of The Sun whether young royals should be made to do national service if this policy ever comes into action. And I think the results are a staggering 88% believe that the younger royals should do national service. That's not really surprising though, is it? Because the royals have a long history with serving in the armed forces, from William and Harry.
Yeah, there's a long tradition of service. It was quite interesting. A couple of years ago, there was a story that was leaked, attributed to a friend of Prince William, saying that he and Kate didn't want to put George under any pressure, and they wouldn't make him go into the services if he didn't want to. I don't think they wanted a situation where a repeat of Prince Edward, who of course famously went into the Marines for a few months and then had to quit. So that was very embarrassing. And also Prince William has written and spoken about mental health issues and how people shouldn't be made to do service if they're not really cut out for it. So it's quite interesting that this subject has now come up. Of course, if the polls are the same people telling us that Labour are going to sweep to power, this is all a bit academic, because if the Tories don't get in, this isn't going to happen. But I suspect that when it comes to it in 8, 10 years' time, 15 years' time, by that time he'll have grown up a lot, George, and it wouldn't surprise me if he wants to do royal service in the armed forces. You know, he volunteers for it himself. So I don't think he'll have to be made to do it. I think he'll want to do it, probably.
If Harry and Meghan ever came back, I mean, as you very pointed out, we don't think we'll ever see Meghan on his shores again. No. That could put Archie in line, or Lilibet, you know.
Yes, I don't think we can make an American citizen do armed forces service for us, but so I don't think that's going to happen. But no, this is one of the strange things. You know, a lot of people think that they should be stripped of their line of succession position. I can sympathise with that. It's not easy to do. It needs all sorts of protocol to be done, but. If things get a lot worse, I mean, they seem to be calming down a little bit at the moment, but if they launched another series of attacks on the royal family, then the pressure might build up to take action, to strip them of the titles and strip them of that. But I don't think the king wants to make the situation worse. He doesn't want to provoke them, and he is still hoping at some point for a reconciliation. So I don't think anything will happen soon.
That's a really interesting point, because there is a lot of chat about, or a lot of people claiming that the king could take them out of the line of succession, or you know, strip them of their titles. And it's been notable, and I do say this a lot, it has been notable that Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, have calmed down a little bit. They aren't throwing so many insults. Do you maybe think that because they've looked further down the line and thought that could be some kind of punishment that was on offer?
I think they've got, well, you know more about this than I do, Matt, but they've got new PR people. I mean, if they listen to their PR people, and sometimes people don't listen to their PR people, but if they listen to their PR people, I'm sure they're telling them that, yeah, right, you've made your point, you had Spare, you had Netflix, you had the Oprah Winfrey interview, you've got it all off your chest. Now's the time to row back a bit and try and build some bridges, or at least create a life for yourself. And obviously the Nigeria trip, they were trying to do that. The jury's out as to whether that was a good idea. I mean, some people called it a sort of quasi-royal tour, and I'm not sure that the palace would have been particularly happy about it. But we can't stop them doing these things if they want to. But it's now time for them really to focus on positive things and not just keep slagging off the royal family.
Yeah, I think they are trying, but you talk about their team. You know, I'm constantly interested in who they have around them, because, you know, Prince William and King Charles, they would have a private secretary. They would have a team. They would have a team that links into the Foreign Office or to embassies overseas. Harry and Meghan don't have that. So if they were, you mentioned about Nigeria, so if they were potentially, that we hear that they might want to go on more tours without they might have a good PR team, or have a PR, you know, people spinning everything good that they are doing when they go on these tours. They need private secretary systems. They need staff that can help them on the ground, link up with embassies, link up with you know, other with the government and the Foreign Office and stuff like that. That's something that concerns me going forward.
Yeah, I mean, they could very easily have, you know, blundered into some kind of political problem in Nigeria. I mean, all right, Charles isn't head of state in Nigeria, but it's obviously a very important country, very prominent member of the Commonwealth. So, you know, there is a danger that they could easily blunder into some sort of diplomatic incident if they make the wrong moves, and get blamed almost as if they are royals, even though they're not representing the royal family. So it's a difficult one, but you know, they're playing to a global audience. They're not just playing to the Commonwealth or to the British public. In fact, the British public's probably the last thing on their mind. You know, they're playing to their audience in America, around the world, and that's what they're going to concentrate on.
Yeah, 100%. Don't go anywhere. There's loads more to come in the rest of the show.
I would ask Harry, do you ever have any regrets? Do you ever think about what you've done? And was it worth it? He must realise one day that he probably took things a little bit too far. I mean, some of the dirty linen didn't need to be washed in public, and it's very sad what's happened, because he was so popular in the past, and now his star has fallen somewhat, certainly in this country.
When we opened, Phil, I explained obviously that you've been working in the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
And what I love to hear, and we have discussed stuff like this in the past, but what I love to hear is is some old interaction with royals and old kind of events. So going back to your early days when
Yes.
you were reporting for The Sun,
Yes.
what kind of leaps out? You know, what would you tell your grandchildren? You know, what's
Well,
the ones that you
lots
bore
of things,
people down the pub with?
Lots of things leap out. I mean, obviously, I was very lucky to be in an era when we were following Diana around the world, Charles and Diana. And we didn't just go on royal tours, we went on their holidays as well. So we went to all the ski trips and the Virgin Islands.
I'm not interrupting you, but you weren't invited on those holidays, were you?
No, we weren't invited, no, but it was kind of, that we came to a sort of tacit agreement where we'd take some photographs on the first day and then theoretically we left them alone. But we had to stay in the ski resort to make sure that there were no sort of, problems. So it was like a sort of free ski holiday, really. But anyway, it was, but to be serious, I mean, some of the iconic moments that I was with her, I always remember in Brazil. We went to Brazil, and at the time she was very much doing this campaign about AIDS, and she picked up an AIDS baby in an orphanage in Sao Paulo, and even some of my hard-bitten colleagues were in tears, but the nurses were in tears because they'd never had anyone like this. There was this stigma about AIDS at the time, so it was really groundbreaking. And to be there when she was doing some of this stuff was looking back on it was quite historically important. So stuff like that stands out. I mean, funnily enough, one of the greatest pinch me moments I had was when I was covering Princess Anne, and she was the first royal in sort of modern times to go to Moscow when the Berlin Wall had come down and Gorbachev was in power. And I was lucky enough to get to draw the short straw as the person who had to go into the Kremlin. And cover the event, and it was an incredibly boring event. Actually, it was, all they did was talk about the weather, if I seem to remember. But I stood there in the office of the president of Russia, or president of the Soviet Union at the time, Gorbachev, in his office, and I'm thinking to myself, not many people get to do this. This is probably where Putin now sits, and so it was quite a remarkable moment, and not many people can say that. So this job does, as you know, takes you to some amazing places, and and enables you to do some incredible things that you wouldn't otherwise do.
You're very lucky with Princess Anne. I don't do enough Princess Anne jobs. She's going to be at D-Day next week, and she's doing a lot of jobs.
I think in the last few years, especially since the Queen died, and people saw how she reacted and stayed with her coffin all the way, and saw how hard she works. I think she's now finally getting the credit she deserves. I mean, going back sort of 40, 50 years ago, she got a terrible press. She hated the press. She used to tell us to naff off, which is frequently quoted in the press. And she hated us, and she got a bad press. But now I think people have finally realised, how hard she's been working, carrying out something like, 500 engagements a year. And she's now in her, mid-70s. And I think people have finally, seen the real Anne and appreciate her for it. And a lot of people, of course, think that she would be a much better monarch than some of the other people who are way ahead. I think she's now dropped down to 17th, I think, in line to the throne, which is quite incredible when you think about it.
I don't think she's bothered about that. Honestly,
no, she's not bothered about it.
But when she does these trips, I'm fascinated by that Moscow trip for so many reasons. But Princess Anne, she doesn't do it for press. She doesn't do it for coverage for the people. She's doing it out of a sense of duty.
Yeah.
Right. She just before the Platinum Jubilee, she went to Papua New Guinea with a tiny team. Literally 3 or 4 people. Yeah. When the king goes abroad, it's a huge army.
She's
of
never
stuff.
encouraged the press to go with her, to be fair. I sometimes think that's a mistake. You sometimes get a reporter and a photographer will go for a magazine. I think there was a piece in the Telegraph recently, which was a very interesting piece when you see her up close and personal doing this. And of course, she was always compared to Diana. People said, well, when Diana came along and started picking up babies and kissing them and this sort of thing, that's something that as president of Save the Children Fund for all these decades, she would never do, Princess Anne. She had a completely different style. But that doesn't mean to say that she doesn't get things done, doesn't mean to say that she doesn't bring attention to the causes where she's in Africa or somewhere else or in Asia or wherever it is, the Caribbean. And she's done a fantastic job. And as I say, I think she's finally, all these years later, getting the recognition for it.
Yeah, so she'll be at D-Day, as I say, doing several engagements. Yeah. The King and Queen will be doing working with they'll be meeting some British veterans both in Portsmouth and on the beaches in Normandy by a new memorial. Prince William, interestingly, will be on Omaha Beach with the world leaders. Yeah. And I just, off the top of my head, I was just thinking that is quite a step up. For Prince William, he's going to be with Macron. I think there's like 25 world leaders there, not Putin. They're not
What's
going.
What's the word you're getting on that, Matt? Is that to save the king from doing too much, or is that to promote William? I mean, I think it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? Showing him as a future king, showing how important he now is and the status he now has. Also, you know, he served in the armed forces. He was kept away from the front line like the King was. I mean, that's both of them regret the fact that they weren't allowed to go to the front in any way, shape, or form. And Harry and that is the sadness, and the other sadness, of course, that Harry and Andrew, the two people who have actually served in war theatres in recent decades, you know, can't take part because of their own behaviour, which is a great shame and a great irony. But no, I think that's fascinating that William is going to take this very important, prominent role and you know, be seen alongside world leaders. So I think it's probably partly to spare the King so he doesn't do too much, but partly to promote William.
I think so, and I think he kind of deserves it, to be honest.
Yeah.
As you say, you know, he has himself been trained in the armed forces,
Yeah.
and he's kind of emerging almost like as a diplomat. And I know he works very close with with the King.
What was he voted recently in a poll in America? The world, I think, most popular person in the world, wasn't he? Something like that.
Or the most popular royal.
Well, I think he was one of the most popular people in the world, you know, and he's now got an incredible following all over the world. And when he speaks, be it about the environment or something else, people listen to him. And I think this is another indication of his maturing, you know, his growing up and coming to the fore.
Excellent. I'm going to be going to the D-Day commemorations next week, and I'll probably, hopefully, be talking about it, everything that I've seen on next week's show. But I will be there when William is on Omaha Beach with these world leaders. And you're right, it's almost like a promotion.
Yeah.
And I'm quite fascinated by the fact that, you know, the King will be down the road and William will be there with
it's absolutely vital, this one, because it's the last time that we're going to see. I mean, they're all aged about 100, all the people who took part. I mean, so it's a shame that, you know, some of the previous ones, obviously with the Queen, it meant so much more with the Queen and Prince Philip because they'd been through the war themselves. Prince Philip, of course, fought in the war himself in the Navy. So that was fantastic when they were able to be there for those events. And the Queen was able to personally thank the servicemen. We're not going to get so much of that this time. We're going to get them thanking, but the fact that obviously we haven't got the Queen and the Duke anymore. So yes, it's going to be quite poignant because this really is the last time that we're going to be able to say thank you to this generation that saved the world, really.
100%. One thing that the King is doing, so obviously the Princess of Wales won't be going to the Colonel's Review next weekend, but the King will be going to trooping, which is great, but he won't be on horseback.
No.
He will be in an open-top carriage. What can we read into that?
Well, I think what we can read into it is that obviously it's great that he's been out and about, and obviously he's getting a lot better and his treatment is working. He's got other things coming up, as we mentioned earlier on. But the fact that the doctors have obviously said to him, don't get on horseback, I think it's just common sense, really. I mean, it's quite strenuous. You're on the back of the horse for, over an hour. Yeah. If the sun comes out, it's very, very hot wearing that bear skin. And in fact, last year, I seem to recall that his horse, is it called Noble, I think it was? I think it got a little bit uppity at one point, and he was actually struggling to sort of control it. Yeah. So if he had any kind of, you know, strenuous work to do, even though he's a very experienced horseman, you know, that could take it out of him a bit. So obviously they don't want to take that risk. He will be very disappointed. I mean, he would love to be on horseback. And of course, I mean, Prince Philip, I think he was well into his 80s while he was still doing it. So he would like to. I'm sure we'll see him back on horseback next year if he's well. But for this, I think obviously the doctors are just being cautious.
Well, they talk about amendments. So, you know, he has a different approach to returning to work, or his medical team have a different approach to returning to work than the Princess of Wales does. And they talk about amendments to certain engagements. And this is just a classic example of ensuring that he can appear at these major events as King, because he has to be seen to be believed, like his mother. And it's just a gentle amendment. But I'm very sad that he's not appearing on a horse.
Yeah, I mean, being on the back of a horse is totally natural to him, isn't it? I mean, he used to play polo, he used to go hunting, as did Camilla, of course. They used to go hunting. I think once he actually took part in a horse race, the King. So yeah, he'd love to be on horseback, but yeah, I think it's just a little bit too much to ask at the moment.
Yeah, fine. We might get the children. I've been asking whether we'll get Louis, Charlotte, and George, and not on horseback. That would be fantastic.
We'll probably have Prince Edward. We'll probably have Princess Anne, and of course Prince William. They'll all be on horseback, so we'll still get that element to it. But I think it's just playing safe to see the King in the carriage.
Do you enjoy trooping the colour? Do you think?
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I mean, I love the marching. I love the square bashing by the soldiers. And then I think, particularly, I think the balcony scene is always fascinating. In fact, I think it's a mistake that one thing that the King has probably made a mistake in is having fewer people on the balcony, because I think we don't often get to see some of the extended family. You know, people like, I don't know, Maria Moet or, you know, whatever, people who are way down the pecking order, and people are fascinated. You know, royal aficionados, for want of a better word, are fascinated to see these people and see how they've grown or whatever. And it's always quite good fun when you've got about 30 or 40 of them on the balcony trying to identify who they are and who their children are. So I'd like to see more of that, but I'm not sure that he'll do that. He might still keep it to a fairly sort of relatively low number of people, which he wants to send out this message about the core members of the family. So that will be interesting to see that. But when you get the fly past and you get them all standing there, it's a great spectacle.
I'm being cheeky here, but that could be a great place for the Princess of Wales to appear on the balcony, couldn't it?
It could be, because she'll be in safety in numbers. You know, yes, there'll be a lot of, obviously the moment we first see her, there's going to be absolutely wall-to-wall coverage. But as you say, it might be a good idea for her to be, or something very low key, where she's not actually doing anything. Maybe being on the centre court to watch a match at Wimbledon. You know, something which is we'll see her, but she's not stressed. But as I say, my money is probably on the autumn.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. I mean, I'm not a betting man, but if I was to do it, then I think I'd go for the autumn. Right, Phil, we have a couple of questions, surprise questions.
Surprise questions?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Based on your years of knowledge and expertise, I'm going to run through a couple of fun questions, okay?
Right.
It's a new thing for Royal Exclusive. We're going to give it a go.
I'm the first victim.
You're the first one, let's see how you get on. Right, so the first question is, if you could have a dinner party with 3 members of the royal family, I think past or present, past or present, who would you invite and why?
Well, people always used to ask me who my favourite royal was, and Prince Philip was my favourite royal. I had many tours where I would follow him around, and of course he used to make these so-called gaffes, but they were jokes mainly. And I found him hilarious, and he was great company. So I'd love to have dinner with him, and I think alongside him, I'd like to have been with the Queen and the Queen Mother. I know it makes me look a bit old picking the older ones, but I found that period fascinating. And of course, the Queen Mother and the Queen were never fully interviewed in their whole lives. They never actually gave a sit-down interview. Lots of people tried, David Frost, Barbara Walters, Michael Parkinson. They all tried to get them to sit down for an interview, but they would never do one. Prince Philip did one, of course, did quite a few, and did one with Fiona Bruce famously when he was for his 90th birthday. So I think for that reason, there's so much to get out of them. I'd love to hear some of the stories the Queen Mother used to tell, especially after she'd had a couple of glasses of champagne. So I think that would be great dinner company. But of course, in later years, the Queen used to throw these lunches for about 8 or 10 people who'd be invited from all walks of life. And so some of them really did sit down for a meal and get her company. So that must have been great. I'm very envious of them.
Interesting to say Prince Philip. I suddenly imagine having a dinner with Prince Philip, Meghan and Harry.
Yes.
That would be an interesting...
that would be interesting, yes. I'm not sure. What did he say? What are they playing at, when he first heard about their plans? But, he was a fantastic character and much underrated, I think.
OK, lovely. Great answer. Right. What has been the biggest royal crisis in the last 50 years?
I think Diana's death. I mean, obviously the annus horribilis, as the Queen called it, of 1992, when we had the divorces and Windsor Castle nearly burning down. That was pretty bad, but nothing to compare. Well, not nothing to compare, but Diana was on a different level, and you did really get a sort of feeling that the monarchy was sort of teetering on the edge a bit. And it was only really when the Queen sort of came down from Scotland and rescued the situation with that speech at Buckingham Palace when she addressed the nation as a grandmother, that she really saved the day, And but I think the repercussions of her death, went on for a long time. It put back the plan for Charles and Camilla to marry several years. So I think that was definitely the biggest crisis.
Do you think that the death of Diana, which was, as I say, was absolutely huge. Do you think that was a bigger crisis than Harry and Meghan stepping down as working royals and moving and appearing on Netflix and writing books and causing problems?
Definitely, yes, because it really divided people, and as I say, there was this, at the time Camilla was seen as as that wicked woman, as the Queen once called her. As the mistress who'd broken up their marriage, rightly or wrongly. People have their different opinions about that, but it really threw everything into jeopardy. And Harry is a big blow, but I think they'll survive it. And he's just that far down the pecking order. But when you're talking about someone who is going to be the future Queen, saying that she didn't think that her ex-husband or her separated husband was fit for the top job, I mean, that really was. I mean, when you at first sat down and watched that Panorama interview, you couldn't actually believe what you were hearing.
She's been proved wrong.
It's been proved wrong in lots of ways, and obviously we all know now about the nefarious ways in which unfortunately Martin Bashir and the BBC got the interview in the first place. But that doesn't alter what she said, so I think looking back at the time, certainly that was the biggest crisis.
Interesting. That's a really good point. I like that. I always maintain that because it's in my timeline. Also, I was young when Diana died, but in my timeline, it was makes it.
It's a bit like when people go on and say Lionel Messi is the greatest footballer of all time. It's only because they didn't see Pelé play, or what? Do you know what I mean? So they don't remember the things. But fine. It was a hard time.
So going back in history, if you could be a fly on the wall at any royal moment, what would it be and why? Well,
funnily enough, I'm coming back to your camp now, bringing it up to date. I'd like to have been a fly on the wall when Harry, the King, and William met after Prince Philip's funeral. Oh. And it was at the first, I think the palace denied that they or gave a message that they didn't meet up, and it was said that they didn't meet. But then in spare, Harry said that they did meet up, and I'd like to have listened to that conversation, because that must have been very, very difficult, and that would give you a real insight into what was really going on. As I say, the King's always left his door open and made it clear that he would like a reconciliation, but. At the moment, it's just not going to happen. Certainly not with William. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if William and Harry never make it up, sadly.
I remember this was a story in The Sun. We put on the front that they had met at Frogmore Cottage, and it was roundly denied, and then it appeared in spare. But that was only one side of the argument, one side of the story from Harry. He was saying what he recollected from the conversations. I'd love to hear
to actually be there and hear what everyone said, because the King, he must be in such a difficult position, between his two sons, and. It must be so hard for him. I think didn't he say to them, according to Harry, please don't make my last years a misery. Yeah. And he must sometimes feel like that the pressure is on these these key players, and it must be very, very hard for him, especially when they're family, close family.
What about happy memory? What's the most heartwarming story that you reported on or read, or the most heartwarming kind of? You touched on it maybe with Diana in Brazil.
Yeah, the eight. I was going to say that as my heartwarming thing. That was incredible. But I mean, it was. I think when you sometimes just see the royals interacting with the public, I mean, that's when you really see, they're literally not just starstruck, but they're really. Some people, rightly or wrongly, are in awe of them, and there's no doubt that when people meet them. They get a real boost, and they're inspired by them. And all they have to do is be nice to them. And, that inspires them, and they then go back into their own lives. And some of that rubs off. So I think, when you see them actually interacting, I mean, the walkabouts kind of started in the 70s with the Queen. I think New Zealand was deemed to be the first sort of walkabout. And from then on, once certainly when Charles and Diana first went to Australia in, I think it was 82, the crowds and the interaction was just extraordinary. People were in tears, just meeting her. And, so that's when it really gives you a lift. When you see it, particularly abroad, you see the soft power and the impact that the royals have all around the world. And it, dare I say, it makes you proud to feel British,
100%.
Which a lot of people don't feel proud to be these days. But I think that is one of the few things we can feel proud of. It's
those off-script moments on a walkabout, or when they're meeting someone and someone, a member of the public says something, and you suddenly see, not an act, but you suddenly see a kind of sudden human interaction, and then their kind of face drops or their face gets excited.
I mean, the King is brilliant. The King has always been, he's very charming. He's very, very good at meeting people. And he always makes them feel as if they're special, and he always has a sort of technique of looking like he's walking away, and then he says something else, and remembers something, and and that really matters to people. They really feel that they're being treated well.
And it includes them in the wider conversation.
That's right.
That's what I always think. He's still bringing people into his conversation as he moves on to somebody else and involves them all together. Yeah. It's really, really clever. Right, final question, I promise.
Yes, final question.
So as a journalist, if you could ask any royal one question on the record, what would it be and why?
I would ask Harry, do you ever have any regrets? Do you ever think about what you've done? And was it worth it?
I'd love to hear that answer.
And
maybe one day we will.
I would love to hear the answer. Maybe one day he'll calm down a bit and realise he probably took it a little bit too far. I know he's got a lot of supporters, but I think he must realise one day that he probably took things a little bit too far. And some of the dirty linen didn't need to be washed in public. And it's very sad what's happened, because he was so popular in the past, and now his star has fallen somewhat, certainly in this country.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil Dampier.
My
I've had
pleasure.
a lovely half an hour chatting with you.
Great
I
to
wish
see
I
you,
could
Matt.
go on longer. Thanks so much for watching. If you like the show, then please subscribe for more royal content.